Breathe in. Welcome to What the Fuchs with Jess Fuchs. Now breathe out. And scream. Because here's what's pissed Jess off this week. Hello everybody. If you're watching this, you know that it's a bit of a different physical setup. I'm against a white wall. What? And a grey couch. Why? Thank you for those questions. Very fair, very legitimate questions. I am actually unprepared, and I am actually in Melbourne, and I am actually currently sitting on the couch of Nick White, where I have been sleeping the last few days. And typically, how the sausage is made, I will record an episode a couple days, nay, a week out. However, with life recently, I haven't had the capacity to think ahead, let alone plan for being interstate. So this is a very different episode, which is kind of exciting. You know why? Because we are hitting episode 10 today. This is the big 1-0. And with the 1-0, I've been evaluating, reconsidering, thinking about my approach to this podcast. And this will be the last episode. No, I'm kidding. Could you imagine? Oh my God. I would be embarrassed that I've failed. Episode 10 is going to be the last of its kind, where I do like a number of complaints about things and format it a certain way. Now you might be like, I've listened to all 9, now the 10th. You don't format it any which way. See, and this is the magic of me. You can't tell what's going on, but there's stuff going on. There's stuff. Oh, is there stuff going on? If you look back and you re-listen and do that, because I need help with the numbers, you will see that there is a specific approach to this podcast. But what I want to do is I'm going to play for the next 10 episodes with shorter format. And why is that? Well, because a friend told me that most people's commute is between 15 and like 20 minutes. I don't even know if this is true. And at the core, this is an issue I have with myself, which is if you tell me with enough strength and authority that something is fact, baby, it hits that fucking frontal cortex as fact. And this is the big problem. I will change my whole life for a well-constructed sentence from a semi-intelligent person. So what are you going to do? Also, basically, it's kind of, I don't want to say ceremonious because I don't think that's the right word in this scenario, but it's kind of serendipitous that today I'm in a clinical white room coming at you live. Well, not live, but live for me. And that's all that matters. With a bit of a twist to what you're used to seeing. And perhaps audio-wise, this is better because Nick has a very good setup that I'm borrowing. I wanted to also say something, but before I say it, I want to just check that it's not disgusting to admit. So I'm just going to Google it. I think I have a stone tonsil, a tonsil stone, because I can feel like a weird thing on the left of my throat. And then I looked in the mirror and it was like a little white thing. And then when I Google it, but I feel fine. And you know what makes me want to off myself is that treatments include good oral hygiene. I floss 3 times a week. I brush every morning, every night. I sometimes even brush in the daytime if I'm going to go out and see people and I'm like, I just want to be extra clean. So I don't know how I got this. And it makes me feel revolting, especially because it's also hot and muggy in Melbourne today. And I'm wearing a swimming costume under because I'm going to go for a swim because, hey, this is how the other half live. There's a swimming pool in this complex and I don't have a swimming pool. The closest I have to a swimming pool in Sydney is sometimes I will get in the bath like I am Andre the Seal from the famous movie Andre that I have never met anyone except for my family who has seen that film. And they put the seal in a tub and he's just absolutely loving it sick. And that's me in a bathtub. So I'm going to go for a swim after this and perhaps some of that chlorine I'll just swallow a bunch and it'll get rid of my stone tonsil. Yuck. Let's read what a stone tonsil is together and destigmatize being gross. That is my goal in this podcast. The next 10 episodes is going to be eliminating social pressure to not be gross. Okay. A clump of calcified... Oh, sorry, not clump. Clump is worse than the word lump, so I'm sorry. A lump of calcified material in the tonsils, the fleshy pad at the back of the throat. Okay, yeah, that I definitely have something like that. The cause is unknown. Well, that's good. That makes me feel a bit better. But oral bacteria may contribute to the formation. The fact that larger ones can be removed by a doctor is disgusting. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is have to look into what do I do. People can get rid of tonsils, stones using salt water gargles, coughing, cotton swabs, or irrigation. However, they often fall out on their own. I feel sick. Maybe we do cut this out because this is disgusting. They usually fall out on their own without treatment. Ew, brushing your teeth regularly and gargling with warm salt water. 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to gargle after this. I feel sick. And to be ill in another person's home, because Nick's not a woman, another person's home, I just assume a home is a woman. And that's sexist. And why not start being sexist on episode 10 if there was ever a time to do that? So we're just going to kind of get into what's been going on in the last couple of weeks, because to be honest, it feels like I haven't been with you for a while, because I had my episode with Tim Abbott. If anyone hasn't listened, go back, listen to that. Electric chemistry, obviously. Hello, Tim, one of my most loyal fans and followers. So we'll just dive into a couple points that I've been thinking a lot about recently. I am in Melbourne doing a bunch of shows if anyone's here. So this will be coming out on Tuesday. I will still be in Melbourne from Tuesday till Sunday. You can come and see a bunch of shows. I am then doing the final show of my 2024 on the 18th of December. Please come to that. And as a sneaky information for people who listen to this, I'm actually filming that. So I'm trying not to tell people because I don't want people to be like, oh my God, fuck, we've got to like be a great audience. No, just show up and be yourselves, because that is great. And just show up and be yourselves because I don't want pressure and I want it to feel really natural. So the 18th of December, if you listen to this and you want a free ticket and you're in Sydney, message me. Say, I listen to the pod. I know what's going down and I want to be a part of it. This is my version of Insurrection Day. I'm like, let's go, girls and Fuchs heads. I don't think Fuchs heads is what we call ourselves. Fuchs. We'll figure it out. Okay, so a couple things recently, but the main thing I would like to discuss is on the flight over here. We talk a lot about flying in this podcast. We've talked about the process of packing the luggage and trying to get it across the line when you're flying Jetstar. But this time what I want to discuss is I got onto a flight yesterday and I walked down the aisle, I put my stuff in the overhead bin, which by the way is completely full. And I'm like, how is it completely full? Who's putting their shit in here? Because there's not very many of you, but somehow all the fucking overhead bins around me are full. Criminal. So now I'm putting my bag 6 bins down, and then that person coming into row 14 is going to have the problem I'm having in row 7. Okay, bullshit to begin with. But don't worry, I sit down, and then all of a sudden this family of 3 comes along, father useless, mother carrying everything, including a brand new fucking soft-born baby. She gets into the seat. We all get up. She sits in. Fine. The husband just like walks off. And then a few minutes later, I've got headphones in. The baby's cooing. Everything's okay. And then someone pulls up next to us and goes, you're in my seat. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, please, please, please. She goes, no, this is 5. And he goes, no, this is 6. Here's the thing, because the father is all the way down the back of the plane, he's not even noticing that his poor wife has to now stand up and get this baby out somehow, when really he had to pass the baby to her. So we stand up, the guy next to me stands up, and the guy just watches her struggle. And I'm like, sorry, would you like me to hold your baby? And she's like, oh yeah, thank you. There's all men around. No one offered to touch this baby. So I take the baby and it's like laughing and cooing at me. Babies really like me. Babies and dogs. And I think I inherited that from my dad, because babies and dogs love my dad. They literally just stare at him. They think he's lols. Dogs are obsessed. It's probably like an alpha thing, which I've inherited, obviously. Alpha vibes. Look at this bun. And anyway, so I'm like, do you want me to hold this baby? So I'm now a mother. A single girl works 2 jobs. Me as Reba on this plane. I'm a survivor. Holding this random baby. It's loving me. And now I'm just feeding into the idea that like I have the body type of someone who's recently given birth, as well as just the mothering instincts of a woman who should have 12 children, all of whom survive because I look after them despite it being plague times. And I just hate feeding into the idea of just being an incredible woman. And that's the problem. this is the thing. I think, okay, this is not fleshed out. So I'm sorry if this is going to take a minute to get to the point, because it's just something I've thought about very briefly, but I haven't really sat down to have the time to deep dive on this. But there are people who come across super feminist and really like, fuck yeah, right? And I think I have that vibe because I'm loud and I'm not thin. Sorry, I can't cock my head back too far. The people watching will see my tonsil stone. And I think the thing is, I'm actually like tragically quite conventional in some ways. So like, I'm really good with children. I'm a good homemaker. I'm really good at like being a hostess and stuff like that. And so I think, whereas some of my friends who are like a bit more actually like really like radical feminist, people would assume that they're actually like quite conventional because of the way that they look and because of the way that they like just come across superficially. And so I think a lot of people, especially in comedy, which brings me to another story I'd like to get into, I think a lot of comedy people or people in my industry are quite like intimidated. And I don't think it's intimidated. I think it's like scared, which I guess could be kind of the same thing, but I don't actually think so, because they think I'm some like loudmouth feminist bitch, which is true. Like, I will call you out. One time, we're going to talk a lot about comedy today for some reason. One time I did 4 shows in one night, and there was the same guy was on 3 of the shows with me. So we do show 1. He's like, oh, whatever. Show 2. He's like, what are you doing here? I was like, why are you surprised? You're in the same venue as me, bitch. Show 3, I was on my own because he didn't do 4. And then show 4, we show up and he's there. And we're at the bar and he's like to me, oh, look at you like taking all these spots from people. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, when people want to complain that like women in comedy don't get as many opportunities, it's like, look at you, you've done 4 shows tonight. I go, yeah, and you've done 3. He's like, no, I'm just saying. And I was like, I don't really care what you're just saying. I was like, and then he started complaining that like there's not enough spots for men. And I was like, but every show I've been on tonight with you, I've been the only woman. So there's 9 opportunities for men and 1 for a woman. Like, why don't you just be better? Because he was complaining that he doesn't get booked on as many shows because now that people put women on a lineup. And mind you, someone's saying this to my face with no shame. Sometimes men will speak like that to me with no recognition that what they're saying is fucking utterly embarrassing for them. And so I said to him, well, why don't you just be better then? Why don't you just be undeniable and you'll get one of the 9 spots? And he's like, yeah, but you know, like statistically, like there's so many women now. And I said, there's probably the same statistical number of women to men per spots available. So if there's 1 spot for a woman, let's say there's 10 women working in general, there's 1, whereas 9 spots, there's probably 90 men. I don't know if that math checks out, but you get the sentiment. Anyway, he goes on stage before me and I just thought, fuck this guy. Fuck you for coming for me and womankind. This is my feminist coming out. And then he was like talking about his partner who he's in a relationship with, but he's like in an open relationship, or he was saying something about wanting to sleep or wanting to be in an open relationship, something about sex toys. And he was like talking about his wife or his girlfriend or his partner, I can't even remember, in the most gross way. And the room was hot, meaning if you said anything, they were laughing. And he really didn't do a good job. Like, it was a middle at best. It was mid. And so I get up after him and I was like, oh, that's so funny because so-and-so who just got off stage is actually the same size as my vibrator. And I never wash him, because it was a reference to his, what he was saying. And when I tell you, this crowd went wild because they hated him and they were just happy someone was making fun of him because he did the worst fucking job. And I don't know why we got into the start of this, but maybe I am a bit of a feminist. Not me, episode 10, realizing, I do believe women and men are equal. Eve was created from Adam's rib, even though all people start with female nipples and female everything in the womb, which is why men have nipples, because they're not functional. And that is science. And I'm going to check that that is science and not just someone told me that once with authority in their voice and I believed it. All people start with double X chromosomes or double Y or whatever. All babies, this is an amazing episode because we are getting into a real variety of information. Start as girls. Let's just Google the most barbaric version of what I said. And here we go. During early development, the gonads, that's a beautiful word, gonads of the fetus remain undifferentiated. That is, all fetal genitalia are the same and are phenotypically female. After approximately 6 to 7 weeks of gestation, however, the expression of a gene on the Y chromosome induces changes that result in the development of the testes. Okay. Now we're getting a few different pieces of information rolling in, but I don't really want to change my opinion. And by opinion, I mean what I know to be fact. Why do humans default to female in fetal development? Now, call me crazy and uneducated and unable to be reasoned with, but it actually doesn't mean then that Eve was created from Adam's rib. It's impossible, because unless he just was like, rips the rib out, God clicks his fingers, and then a woman in its full form appears. She's not like a baby first. And I don't know enough about made up stories like the Bible to really know this one. So let's ignore that. Oh, I was going to say as well, just thinking of whether someone's born as a baby or born as a full-blown human, like per God's instructions. I watched an incredibly bad Christmas movie that you've got to get across. It's called, oh my God, Hot Frosty. Okay, listen to this and tell me this isn't the most perfect Christmas movie. 2 years after losing her husband, Kathy, queen of holiday films, Lacey Chabot, sorry about that, brings a handsome snowman, Dustin Milligan from Schitt's Creek, to life. As his sweet nature opens her heart to love again, the unlikely pair face the ultimate separation, his melting. Hilarious. Okay, what I want to say is there is a stream of Christmas movies and movies in general where a woman somehow makes a man from scratch or come to life and then proceeds throughout 90 minutes to teach him how to be a person. And women find that endearing. Hold on, you've just created a son. You've created a son that you can have sex with, and you are endeared by this man. Now, in this movie, much like in parallels to films like Beauty and the Beast, we have him, for example, trying to do something in the kitchen that is quite childlike. And she's like, oh, don't do that. And he's like, okay. And she's like, be still, my beating vagina. What are you talking about with this genre of movies where women somehow stumble upon a snowman who is created into a human man and doesn't know how to do anything and proceeds to fall in love with him? His childlike wonder makes her open up her heart. Just have a child. Just have a baby. Because it is really bizarre that I watched this 90-minute film and watched you fall in love with essentially a child, and as he gets more human, less of a snowman, there's no other way to put that sentence, he becomes smarter. So on the one hand, she is raising him to be competent and capable into a man that she could date and fall in love with. But on the other, you're simply raising a boy. And I do not understand this genre of movies. It is really bizarre. I do not understand anyone who wants to raise someone or have to parent their partner. It is a pandemic, epidemic, crisis, whatever the right word is. And I want to see it stop. I did coin a phrase the other day in my newsletter that I think is brilliant. And it relates to this. And I will define this. Oh gosh, where did that go? Now, in my newsletter from this week, if you've missed it, so sorry, you've missed out on free tickets to my December 18 show. Okay, so I just want to read this one passage, which I think is really poignant. Okay, so in my newsletter, I do explain why am I giving free tickets to this show. And it's a simple answer. Between the cost of living crisis, climate crisis, gender pay gap crisis, and viable sexual partner scarcity crisis, if I can only offer a moment, or rather 60 moments of reprieve before the end of 2024, I will. Now, the reason that I speak about moments is because I didn't know how many moments are in an hour. I assumed perhaps it would be 60. How long is a moment? How long is a moment? And when I Googled it, it said in history, according to medieval definition of moment as a unit of time, there would be 40 moments in an hour. So I don't really know what that makes an individual moment, and I don't know how we decide on a moment, but I guess in the medieval times, they were like, this is what we are having as a moment, a melting moment. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to talk about is the viable sexual partner scarcity. I think it's a pretty brilliant term, and I think it is one that many people should be absolutely going off about. I haven't heard anyone yet respond to my voice. I haven't heard anyone yet respond to my newsletter heralding that as a revelatory term. I'm using a lot of big words today, not intentionally. I'm not trying to sound smart. As you know, I'm very comfortable being dumb. However, they're just coming out of me. I think it could be being in a clinical white box. It's making me like quite confused physically. We're jumping around so much today. This is chaotic. Also, I am whispering, so it's feeling ASMR-y because Nick is just on the other side of that door. And even though I put this out for anyone in the world to listen to, there is something quite self-conscious about a person just sitting on the other side of a door while you just scream and shout, because sometimes I will be mid-sentence and realize, whoa, you can't speak like that. So I have to start again. And the only person that I allow to see me this vulnerably is Alex, who edits this. And a huge shout out to episode 10 to Alex. Cheers. This one, I'm pouring this out for you. I'm drinking my water. That tastes fucked. I hate the taste of water in Melbourne. Maybe that's why I have a tonsil stone, because it just appeared being in Melbourne. I'm a survivor. I think I can sing today. All right. The only other thing that I think I've already discussed this briefly, but I went to Coldplay the other week when he was here a couple of weeks ago. That was a crazy experience. I went because it was free. Obviously, I am trying to convince myself to do more things that aren't comedy, because otherwise you just live the same life. I feel like the last couple of months for me has been Groundhog Day. I can't lie to you. It has been Groundhog Day every single day, doing the same things with the same outcome, and me wanting to absolutely just off myself with how every day I wake up. At least the last few nights I've been waking up and I'm like, where am I? And then I'm like, oh, I'm in Melbourne. At least that's a little bit different. God, thank God for that. Now, I did a show a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately, I was the headliner. Now, usually I would be very happy with being the main act, because it is a start of kind of becoming more successful. You get paid a bit more, but also it is a bit more clout. However, this is why I went to Coldplay, because I can't just talk about comedy to you guys. No one actually cares. But the anger point that I have, and I really have to come with one today, one really solid, strong anger point, because I think there's been a soft undertone, but because I've been whispering the whole time, I actually think my brain can't process that I'm angry. But I believe I have been. I mean, the baby thing, I was mad at the husband who just fucked off with this thing. Sit with your woman. Sit with the baby. Don't leave this woman. Oh my God. And then the other anger point related to that is the fact that, I think we deep dived onto me being a feminist or not being a feminist. But I did a show the other week and I was the headline act, and there was supposed to be someone else who was the headline act, but he, for whatever reason, couldn't do it. And what pisses me off about this is this is a through line of sexism as well, myself included. Now, the person who books this show is a woman, and she books who she thinks is funny, which is amazing, and I think that's incredibly powerful. However, what she thinks is funny is very different to a room of 200 people who were all between the ages of 45 and 75. These people who live in suburbia, where they're far away from any city. So 20-year-olds at that point, or 25-year-olds have 2 kids and wear floral. That's the kind of people we're dealing with. So even there might have been some 25-year-olds in that room, but they had the spirit of a 45-year-old. So she's booked a variety of acts, all incredible, and put me as the headline act. Why would you do that? Don't do that to me. Don't do that to them. They don't want that. They've paid for this whole big night out. It's Friday night. I've come here. And oh my God, it was such hard work. And I am pissed because I'm it is a very hard thing to change people's minds. And every time I go on stage, I worry that I am not I'm oh my God, I'm coming out on stage and I have to change your mind that you think women are funny because I'm headlining. I'm the main act of this night. What's the point? There is no point to that. I guess we could cut that. I don't know. I feel indecisive today. And again, this is almost like a tester for future episodes, because I think future episodes are going to be significantly shorter. They're just going to be sitting around, say, 20 to 30 minutes. And this, we're kind of sitting somewhere in the middle. All right, this complaint came in from a listener and we will read it as such. Why do trendy people always look so mean? Public service announcement. If you have more than 2 piercings, visible tattoos, an unnatural looking haircut, and wear oversized or undersized clothes, try looking less pissed off all the time. I love that we just all judge each other all the time, and like, that's so funny. Also, the idea of oversized or undersized is so true. I feel like it's so funny. There's so many things online of like fat or plus size, like fashion people being like, is it trendy or are you just thin? And then they show like a thin person, like a Kylie Jenner or whatever, wearing a certain style, which is so boring. And then you just see like, okay, that's not actually trendy. People are just like, you look incredible. It's like she's wearing a spaghetti strap black t-shirt, black singlet, and like cargo shorts that sit on her waist, like her hips. Like she's not done anything. She's just skinny. And I love that. But that is so true of the oversized or undersized. And also like the oversized, wearing stuff oversized, I love it. I do it all the time and I think it's great. But I think that's so funny that makes someone be trendy all of a sudden, you know? Also the framing of if you have more than 2 piercings, that's fine. I've got 6 or more. Using the phrase an unnatural looking haircut as if all haircuts aren't unnatural is so funny to me. I also have thought a lot about how did people haircut throughout history? How did people cut their hair before scissors? Surely that's going to get us somewhere. People have used a variety of tools to cut their hair before scissors, including sharp rocks and shells. Cave drawings from 1100 BCE depict men with short stubble, which may have been achieved using sharp rocks and shells. Fuck right off. That's incredible. Clamshells. Men in the Stone Age era may have used clamshells to tweeze unwanted hairs. Mussel shells. Some hypothesize that Native Americans used sharpened mussel shells to cut their hair. Shears. The Romans used shears to cut hair on the crown of the head. But are shears scissors? No? Barbers used razors before electric clippers. Well, we know that. That's not interesting. Holy shit. Who invented the scissors? When were the scissors invented? See, so recently what I've discovered is because I can use voice to text, if I don't know how to use a word, spell a word and I can't find it on Google, I used to voice note it to my sister, but she's busy. So she's not on it enough to answer me. So now what I've been doing is I just use voice to text and then I see. So the other day I could not figure out how to spell suede. Like he was swayed and I forgot that suede could be SWAYED because I had tried, because persuade is, we all know how to spell persuade, but it's like SUED or whatever. It's got some weird shit. So I was like, oh, well, obviously suede is suede like the clothes, but there must be like a bit of maybe there's an extra A somewhere. So I'm like, how do you spell this? How do you spell this? I'm Googling it. It keeps saying suede. And I was like, no, someone who is easily swayed. And then it was like, how to wash easy suede. I'm like, no, suede. And then I said, he was easily swayed. SWAYED. Fucking hell, mate. The earliest known scissors were likely invented in Mesopotamia 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Now, I know that history is male culture, but isn't it fascinating? And sometimes to dip a toe in. These early scissors were more like shears and were made of a single U-shaped piece of bronze. They were used to cut the hair and skin of animals. Fucking hell. There is such a part of me that wishes I were alive like thousands of years ago to have seen this shit. Imagine you're sitting at home one day and your papa brings home shears. And you're like, what is this? And he's like, it's Mesopotamia 3,000 years ago. We have just gotten these things that are game changers. There's nothing that comes into the world anymore that is a game changer. What, Facebook? I'm so sick of online technology being revolutionary. I want something physical that reshapes the world. I want a physical object like a scissor to just come in and take over. And the other thing that I know, or think I know, is apparently the sewing machine is one of the only inventions that since it was invented hasn't really been changed. Like obviously it's become electrical. Yeah, that's the right word. Like it used to be like, I guess you'd pump it with your hand or your foot or something, and then now it's whatever. So it has been streamlined to some degree, but it is actually at its like makeup the same kind of invention. Now I could be making this up, but again, I think this is right because someone told me this a while ago. And I think it's right because I remember writing it down to do a joke of like, incredible to think that like a sewing machine hasn't really changed, because a typewriter is, you know, I can see how a typewriter influences the becomings of a computer. Don't know if that's true, but that's true in my mind. But with a sewing machine, I'm like, wow, that's one of the only inventions that stayed the same. Same with the vagina. Factory default settings, that baby works perfectly. I want to just say the energy was low on this because I was whispering, and it's hard to get really physically aggressive and angry when you are whispering. That is a huge thing. So maybe that's a good technique. If you're ever in a fight with someone and they're like really getting heated, just start whispering and being like, oh my God, like, okay, yeah, you've got a really valid point, but because you can't really like the most you could do is that. That's not very impactful. Now I'm going to leave on the fact we were discussing scissors because I'm going to go for a swim and then I'm going to prepare for a show. And like I said, I have a variety of shows in Melbourne. If you're not in Melbourne, if you happen to be in Sydney, please come on the 18th of December. I am going to be filming. It's going to be a really fun, silly show. And I'm wearing something slay as per usual. Unfortunately, not my big baggy white tee today, my button up. Thank you all for listening to these 10 episodes. We are going to keep going. We will persist as the pussy hat wearing feminist icon. Oh, I shouldn't do that physical move in case that's like something bad. Okay, anyway, I've got to wrap this up. I've got to go for a swim because I think I've sweated so much in this that I'm actually like dehydrated and saying stuff that I shouldn't be saying. So thank you from the bottom of my little beating heart. Thank you for listening to the first 10 episodes. Thank you for anyone who has messaged me saying they like it, or they've written in anything that pisses them off, or they have just told someone, or they've told me, or told anyone. It's so beautiful. Here's to the future, to the next 10 episodes. I think what we'll do is we'll just play around and we're going to just like keep improving and keep shit talking and keep living La Vida Loca. So love ya. Thanks for listening. Until next time, over and out. Mwah, 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 mwah. Alex, you slow zoom, but actually wait for me to not be sweating. Okay, here we go. Mwah, 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 mwah. Bye.